Welcome to the RE Source and another edition of the Masterclass series. Today I'm super excited because we have Tim Davis from Tennessee. Is that right? Tennessee? You're in Tennessee today?
Yeah, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
From Nashville.
Accent included.
National coach. I think you coached at CMG, Guaranteed Rate, and now you're national coach for Movement Mortgage. He's been in the industry forever. He's coached top performers, top executives, top loan officers. Pretty much anybody and everybody has a ton of success under his belt. I tried to see if I could get him on the show, and he so graciously accepted. So we have a few minutes with Tim. We're going to dive right into it. This guy's a superstar, so I want to pick his brain. So question number one, and thank you for joining us.
Yep.
How can a realtor or a lender get super clear on their value proposition, and why is that so important and paramount right now?
Okay, so let me tell you my story on that, because I was in the same position so many people are in years ago, where I felt like my customer was everybody. You know, my value proposition might as well have been, if you're alive, you're my customer. Right? That's not a good place to be in. And I hired a coach to kind of help me walk through that, and I had to get past some limiting beliefs. And one of the limiting beliefs that I had to get past was that my mission in life was to serve everybody, simply because I would get one customer that would be, have one set of needs. A minute later, I'd have a customer with a different set of needs. So I'm constantly switching these hats, which is at the end of the day, 100% exhausting, and really leads to just a ceiling and a cap on your potential. So she challenged me. She's like, look, why don't we go specific with people that you really like to be around, that's a large enough demographic that's going to, get a mortgage, or in realtor's case, buy a house, that there's a large enough demographic that you can grab just a small share of them and have an amazing success. And I thought about that. And the exercise that I did, Ryan, was I went through my customer list of people that I'd worked with, closed transactions for, and I identified the top 20 of them that I really love. Like, the people that you just call and like, hey, man, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then after I identified those, I identified, was there anything similar in their, what was similar about these people that caused this connection to them?
Yep.
Right?
What's their general makeup? Yeah.
Yeah. When you have a connection to somebody, it transcends like the relationship. It's no longer transactional. It's like meaningful. And what I discovered in my book was that they were self-employed. They were entrepreneurs. Quite a few of them were in the music industry, hence, Nashville, Music City, right?
Right.
And so we started to craft a value proposition to attract more of those people in, and then really start to define the value of the services that I would offer that would maybe go above and beyond just the financial transaction or just like selling the house. But what can I do extra? Like, I call it putting a mint on a pillow. So if you've ever stayed at the Ritz-Carlton, my wife loves staying there because of one thing. Every time when we get back to the room, there's a chocolate mint on the pillow. It's that extra, right? It makes them feel special, right? So how can you add extra value to them? So you can start off with a value statement, and I'll give you a script that anybody could use. But then you go, okay, what can I do additionally for them? So for example, they needed tax work, right? They're self-employed. So I put together a list of CPAs. They needed financial planners, and I put together a list of financial planners. So I started to become a center for them to get other services they needed to be self-employed. And then my main product, which was the mortgage at the time, or for an agent selling the home, became how I made my living, right? But then I became really a center part of their entire life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the interesting part of that, there's a comment and then a question, is I think you probably, in realtors and lenders that do this exercise, you're probably a bit more happy because you're actually working with people that match your why and your general DNA and makeup, and you're not working with people that maybe you don't gel with. So you probably experience a bit more happiness. But also, I think people, how do you get over this one? Like, I think the mental block is, well, I want to cast out as many nets as possible, and when I shrink my target market, am I going to lose business? Isn't that like a natural human response to that?
Yeah, I actually got that question literally Wednesday this week. I was in Atlanta, Georgia. We did 2 branding events where I talk about this. And one of the agents in the far back of the room said, but I'm going to lose all that other business.
Yeah.
Right. And I said, how much of that other business are you currently capturing right now? And she was quiet. She's like, I don't know. I said, so here's the thing. It starts with like, where do you want to get to? How many transactions do you want to fund? So do you want to, and now granted, the number of transactions for an agent versus a loan officer might be slightly different because the pay scales are different, right? So we might have to double the number of transactions for a loan officer to make the same amount of income.
Yeah.
But let's say for an agent, it's 50 transactions a year, right? And let's say for a loan officer, it's 125 transactions a year. Well, here's my question back to you, using my example. Ryan, in your area where you live, are there substantially more than 125 people that are self-employed in some way?
Good point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what's that larger number, and what percentage are we trying to get?
Yeah.
Like in Nashville, my business grew 168% in 1 year. And what was really awesome was my time per week went down from 62 hours that first year to 48. And we ultimately got it down to 40. So my time decreased, my happiness increased, and I was getting a large share of the market because I had a very specific message, and other people started to hear about it, and they would call me out of the blue, and I had never met them before. So now if you're trying to sell, condos to single men with cats, I mean, once you get the two that want to buy, then you're done. So you've got to have a large enough demographic that, you know what I'm saying? So, and you got to do the math on it to make sure it makes sense. But
that's funny. There's a book back here that, it's right here. It's called The Economics of Happiness. And you just explained a principle. And it's a really interesting book, a completely contrarian book where they measure, instead of like gross domestic product, they measure happiness in different nations and track and measure a different metric than most nations do. It's a really crazy book. But you talked about one of the principles, which is, really focusing on what makes you happy. And it's contradictory to where I think most people think, like, I can get more business if I focus on a smaller group of people. Yeah, you can. I believe that. And it'll match your why. You'll be happier, and you can actually start scaling that business, because it's just, funny thing happens when you're in that, like you're in a perfect fit, like a suit that just fits you perfectly. That business will start to take off because you're happy, and it's not work anymore. I'm not working my 9 to 5 or a grind. Like, I enjoy the people that I work with. I like to do it after hours. I like to do it on Saturdays and Sundays, and all of a sudden now I'm doing way more than I ever thought when I was just casting out nets randomly to everybody. So I love that. And I think getting super clear on your value proposition, as you point as well, who you give that to is so important. And I think lenders and realtors struggle with value and getting clear, like, expectations in their head of what their value is and what they're going to give to other people. And I think that's where we're missing the boat right now. And as realtors and lenders, that's a question that we have to ask ourselves is, as a realtor, why am I more value than Redfin or Zillow? Tough one. That's a tough one. Lenders, why am I more valuable than, say, Rocket Mortgage or, insert consumer direct channel here? That's a tough one to really think about, tougher to even answer and get really clear on. If you don't know your value, to Tim's point, you can't even start with, answering the question on the paper. Leads me to my next question for you. Agree or disagree, once you're clear on your value proposition, personal branding becomes much easier. Agree or disagree?
I would agree with that 100%. Because here's why that I would agree with. Let's say, for example, that you decide that the medical industry is something you had maybe previous industry experience in, or your family comes from that, right? You're networked in that industry, and you decide that your value is going to be serving that community. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'll give you a script to fill in the blank here in just a second. I think we'll make it super easy for people to get past the hurdle.
Yeah.
But let's say that that's the community you decide to serve. Well, prior to that, your personal brand might just be a suit and tie or in a nice dress or whatever, the standard head in the box shot that we've seen a bazillion times out there,
right.
But then if I start to serve the medical community, maybe my brand becomes a white doctor's coat. Right? Maybe my brand has a stethoscope involved with it. Maybe I have like prescription notepads, like for medicine, but it's what you need to do to sell your house or what you need to do to get a loan, right? So now all of a sudden I'm able to tap into some uniqueness that they wouldn't normally see within my industry, right? And I've got this thing I say all the time, same as lane. And most realtor, same as lane.
I love it.
Most agents' business cards, most loan officers' business cards tell me nothing. They all look the same, right? I mean, so why not stand out? Why not be different? And at least have people talking about you. And I think so when you really get clear on it, then all of a sudden you can do some really fun stuff because you start to mirror your market.
Yeah.
And think it's really important. Like when you're just trying to brand yourself on your own, you don't know who your market is. Well, you can't match them because you can't mirror them, right? But when you know that market, you start to mirror match. That's pretty huge and pretty significant. So
yeah, and I think, again, to your point, clearly defining your target market, and maybe that's smaller. That's okay. We already talked about that. And then clearly defining your value. I think organically the personal branding starts to happen, and because so many people struggle with that. I'm talking on Tuesday at an MBA event, and I'm really going to challenge. It's a lot of executives, a lot of leaders. It's okay for them to have their own personal brand as well. And I'm going to ask them, think about what does your personal brand say? And I know for sure that most of them are going to go to reputation. I'm not talking about reputation. I'm talking about personal brand. And so that's my challenge, I guess, to the realtors and lenders is getting clear on your target market, getting clear on your value proposition, and then really driving that home with your personal branding. Again, guys, this isn't your reputation. Oh, he's an honest guy or an honest girl, or he's a great down payment assistance loan officer or realtor.
Right.
No, that's a part of the story. But if you're struggling and you're honest and you're answering the question that I just threw out, what's your personal brand, and you don't know, okay, first of all, that's okay. But second of all, do something about it. Let's get clear on some of these things and go out there. And being a niche and having a personal brand is so important right now. How are you going to fight the Amazons and the Zillows and the Redfins and the Rockets of the world? Same as lame. As you just said it, like you're going to have to be contrarian, you're going to have to be different, and you're going to have to be ultra clear on the people that you want to serve and the value that you're going to give them.
Well, it also helps you do something else, which is one of my things I say all the time is get locally famous.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Become so famous locally, right? Well, how can you become famous locally if you're just a mortgage lender, if you're just a realtor? Because trust me, I know 100 bazillion of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But if you're the agent who services entrepreneurs in the city, man, you can get really famous for that.
Yeah.
Right. And really accelerate your brand and your growth.
Well,
so
there's a Josh Metal. I don't know if you ever met him. I think he's a Fairway loan officer. He did just that. He actually, I'm going to butcher his numbers. I think it's well over 100 million a year though. And he got ultra clear on who he's going to serve. It was a doctor loan. If you Google Josh Metal right now, that's his target market, and he crushes it with one tiny little niche. One tiny niche, and he just crushes it and serves doctors, which are great people to work with, by the way, and typically well qualified, so that probably works out for him, and like to buy houses and have money to do so. So He got clear on his target market, to your original point, and now his personal branding it just organically comes out that he's the doctor loan guy, and he's doing $100 million, which, again, I don't know for sure. I know it's above that, but at least $100 million a year with that one niche. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, I got countless stories of people just like that. But let me insert this script real quick for you, Ryan, if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
And people can, listen to this and copy it down. But when you answer the question, what do you do for a living? People ask you, what line of work are you in? What do you do for a living? Here's the script. I work with, and you fill in the blank. Okay, and that's got to be the demographic that you're serving. So in his case, I work with physicians, doctors. In my case, I work with entrepreneurs, people who are self-employed, who want blank. And what do they want? Right?
Love it.
So, but here's the kicker. So they can blank. Okay, so nobody's ever bought a house from an agent because they wanted to vacuum carpet all weekend. Nobody's ever bought a house because they want to mow the grass.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever bought a house because you have Helvetica in your font.
Yeah.
Okay. They just don't. But let me give you an example. I work with young professionals who recently got married and want to buy a home so they can raise a family in a quiet neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right. When I was in Nashville, I worked with singers, songwriters, entrepreneurs in the music industry who are self-employed and want to buy a home so they can put a studio in the basement and record music anytime
I
they
love it. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So when I got that really clear on that, I work with blank who want blank so they can blank.
Love it.
Right? And you can take that and you can apply it to anything. I work with senior citizens who want to sell their existing home and downsize to a one level, right? So they can no longer have to trample up the stairs and enjoy the actual house that they're living in, right? You got to think through this, Ryan, and you got to get really clear. But when you do that, it goes to the next level.
I love it. I love that script. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I love takeaways like that, like something you can actually go sit down after you watch this. okay, Ryan punched me in the nose. He identified one of my areas that I need to improve. Tim gave me a script, and now I'm going to go do something about it.
It's super easy script. It's elementary stuff, right?
Yeah.
It works, but you got to massage it. You got to wrestle with it. So hopefully that helps. So
here's my bonus question for you that I haven't prepped you at all on. So it's a little bit long. I got to read my notes, but I think you'll like it. I'm really
interested. Take a drink of water.
I'm really interested to see what you come up with, because whatever comes to your head, you're going to have to rattle off. Okay, so think back over all the years, all the people you've coached, all the success stories. If you had to pick one thing as to what clicked in that top performer's head, or what changed in that top performer, if you had to pick one thing they needed to improve or maybe remove, the roadblock to their success, all those people you coached, all the success stories that I've heard and read about, if you had to pick one thing, what do you think the common thread amongst those top performers would be? I know it's a tough one.
No, it's actually pretty easy, man, because as you were describing it, this one thing came to my mind. They got, through our working together, right? They got to become more intentional about getting more exposure to the market they serve.
Love it.
Period. Now, that exposure came in a lot of different ways. They did videos, they hosted events, right? They did online advertising, offline advertising, but they started to become intentional about it, right? So sometimes it takes people a little bit to kind of massage through that, and there's a lot of phone calls and back and forth that you go through. But when that clicked, like, oh my gosh, I got to get more intentional. I can't just be haphazard about what I'm doing every day.
Yep.
I need to be intentional, and I need to get my message exposed to the most amount of people that would respond to it, right? So then what methodologies will I use? And when that started to click in them, it's like they become marketing machines, right? And that's the one thing out of all of them. And I'm faces are coming to me right now, and I'm like, oh yeah, Carrie Ann, I remember when she did that. Oh, Tiffany, I remember when she did that. Oh, Lori, I remember when that clicked with her, right? And then next thing you know, growth started to happen.
Well, I was reading an article, and you had helped, you may have mentioned her name, I can't remember her name, a girl that was doing 2 loans a month and then ended up doing like 200 a year.
Tiffany.
Yeah, it was all about intention. And I put this on Facebook the other day, and it didn't get a lot of reaction, probably because it was out of context, but I said happenstance is not a business strategy. When business is easy, so many realtors and lenders will get business because of happenstance. They ran into somebody on an airplane, got a $1 million deal. They ran to somebody at their kid's ball game. That's not a business strategy, and that's not being intentional. And that's what happens in a market like that. Bill Hart, my coach, was talking about how the market is like a phone booth full of cash in the last 3 years, and it's pretty easy to grab cash. Yeah. Well, there's a lot less opportunities, and when there's only $3 or $4 bills flying around in that phone booth, it's harder to grab. And to your point, you have to get way more intentional about your strategy. And I think some of us got through with happenstance. Guys, that's not a business strategy. You have to be super intentional, and that's 20, 30 years of coaching top performers, picking one thing about what sets them apart from a bottom producer, being intentional with their strategy. And as lenders and realtors, that's not one of our organic strong suits. I don't know why it isn't. It should be, because we're all self-employed. Be intentional. Be clear about who you serve, why you serve them, and what the value proposition is. So I love that you said that. It was actually right in line with things that I've been thinking about this week. So.
Well, it's been, and I told this to the group in Atlanta, I'm really transparent. I'm really honest, maybe to my own detriment sometimes, I don't know. But I told the agents in Atlanta this week, I was like, look, guys, quite frankly, the truth of the matter is, in the last 3, maybe 5 years, it didn't take a lot of talent to do both sides of the job, quite frankly. And I know that people are going to be like, oh, that's not true. Well, trust me, my house sold in 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon for $20,000 more. And the guy who got the commission just happened to be a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But 2,000 other agents could have been in that right boat, because we were in a hot neighborhood and everybody wanted to buy there.
Right.
Right. And, but the marketplace has got more disruptors in it now. Right. And they're trying to make the value proposition your back pocket, saying, well, you get paid too much. Right. And so they're trying to hit you there, whether it's Redfins or whatever. They're trying to decrease your value. And so they're saying that you get paid too much. What are you honestly going to do about getting intentional now? Because we're starting to see the tide go out. We're starting to go, man, there's some naked people on the beach.
That's so funny.
And that haven't
Love
been to
the
the
analogy.
gym.
I love the analogy.
There's some naked people on the beach that haven't been to the gym. I mean,
There's our
someone-
takeaway for the whole day. I love it. Don't be a naked guy on the beach that's out of shape when the tide goes out.
There'll be a meme that starts as a result of that. But we're starting to see that right now. And what the market's requiring is like get famous locally, get clear about who you're serving, and get very intentional about getting yourself as much exposure as you possibly can. I mean, I got people that will say, I don't like to do video because I don't like how I look on video. Well, that's how you look, man. I don't even know how you get up in the morning if you're worried about that. So you have to get past yourself and do some video and do some other things, but get targeted and you'll be fine. You'll have a lot of success.
Well, there you go, guys. You heard it first from Tim. Don't be the naked guy or gal on the beach when the tide goes out. Get intentional, get in the gym, get in shape.
Right.
I love it, man.
Push-ups. Don't let me see you out there on the beach with the Krispy Kreme donut. Doesn't work.
I love it, man. Awesome interview. Thanks for the time. Hey, guys, if you have questions, put it in the comment section below. I'm sure Tim would be nice enough to answer them. Follow him on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We'll see you guys next week.